Okay, so yeah, let's just go ahead and kick it off with a lot of stuff that I'm starting to realize, sort of starting to understand. And I think ultimately, let me make sure this posts before, because I bet, hold on 1 second. 1 second, okay. So this is a new Q&A response. You should be able to, and I'll be able to see them. So I don't know how that works. We'll find out. If not, just leave comments, and then I'll be able to see it that way. Okay, fix my hair. Now, it hit me today that what's really kind of going on is that there is, like, the people who know what's up, the people who are decompartmentalized, the people who know what's going on, is an amalgam of insiders who were either advantaged or disadvantaged, but in some sense they were all kind of advantaged. Now, if you want to ask me who's driving the change, there's two classes of people driving the change, the three classes. The first is going to be those who have religious conviction, so to speak. These are the people who ultimately are rationally concerned about their place in, you know, existence, essentially. I mean, they're worried about what it means to be alive and their soul and stuff like that. These are the people that are changing things, wanting it to follow the law. The second class are those who did not know about the nefarious nature of the crimes that were being committed, because, you know, mass genocide to the tune of millions and millions of people dying in wars that were unnecessary, false flag operations, psychological operations destroying society, the crimes that were being committed in basements with children, and the snuff film, and the extortion, and all of that stuff. These are people who are out for a vengeance. They actually are driven by a gut instinct to put an end to that, and I happen to sympathize strongly with those people. The third tier of persons that are driving this change are insiders who just know that regardless of how you spin it, the current structure cannot actually last. It's kind of ironically, as it's sort of being broken, and as the anniversary, the 100-year anniversary comes up for the Federal Reserve, there's a sense in which it is actually not working anymore. And they don't know what to do about it. And there's like a bit of a sort of fear that they are that there's gonna be an uncontrolled uprising that will, you know, seek retribution or something like that. Or, you know, even I want to include in this tier, these are people who just want the world to work. You know, they just want the world to work, and there you go. Those are the three people that are changing things. Okay. Now, who are you going to find among these three people? Well, mainly you're going to find lower tier, I think. Really, you're going to find people who maybe even just have just a natural sort of amount of power or cleverness or likability, and let's say that the artificial power structure muscled them out. This is just an example. And they have basically a vengeance. They have a vengeance. I'm trying to like class what's going on, because I'm trying to figure out which way all this is heading. Okay, because let me go ahead and tell you, the people who have been decompartmentalized and are under the realization that things were ultimately bad or nefarious, or that they're possibly even turning around right now, are the ones who are sort of hesitant or unwilling to actually turn things around. And in some sense, these are your, say, one percenters and things like that. And I understand their concern, okay, because there's obviously a personal concern there. There could even be a sense in which there is like a negative eye turned towards them, like how did you know these things and yet you didn't do anything about them, kind of thing. And this is my reason for trying to promote the idea that we need to come up with a way to propose that there needs to be a sort of forgiveness movement. And maybe they don't even want that. They don't want to have people understand their own, I'm basically constantly being nice, their own inability to do, and to do things about this. So I feel bad for them. I really do, because in essence we need them. We need things to turn around. There's clearly an incentive, a spiritual incentive. I mean, you're not going to live forever. You're going to die, okay? And I don't know what happens, but I do know that there are value assessments to say, there's always just value terminology, and so if after you die and it's not nothing, then you must be concerned at least a little bit about whether or not it's bad. And so I would probably just persuade you to understand that the Federal Reserve System, which is almost 100 years old now, has committed the most atrocious crimes. And none of you, I hope, I don't know what could be behind this, are actually living human beings who put that in place, okay? Even some of you who are dastardly, who may be sort of attached at the hip to the idea of it, need to understand that that system is responsible for, like, I don't think we can even grasp how it was raw evil. It's like that sort of term we don't really use as if we understand what it means. But I think when we're finally decompartmentalized or declassified on the sort of things that were essentially happening and the intentions that were being made and the sort of crimes that were being committed, especially to the most innocent among us, you feel it like it's real. It's real, okay? Evil and goodness and all of these neat metaphysical sort of things, they all exist. And that is the awakening. The awakening is the understanding that the physical plane, the things that you could attribute to some sort of touch, just the non-intellectual ways of sensing things, are in fact just illusory, or basically poor perceptions or poor information processing of the way things are. And it is the forms, the archetypes, the consciousness, those complexities of things that are sensed in the usual sense, which are in fact real. And so I warn you that there is a spiritual world, and I think, second, I'm actually getting over that. I found out through basically just remembering the way things used to be that happens through me being overweight. I get gastrointestinal reflux disease, so I'm on a diet. So I'm not going to always be this, messed up. But what I'm saying is, I know that there's a lot of insecurity because we don't even know, like, we've been in the slavery for so long. It's like coming out of the Egypt, I don't like using biblical stuff, but it's like how they were like, no, we're fine here, everything's fine, why would we trek across the desert when we could just be slaves? Well, I promise you that if I've already got some pretty good ideas for how to make this work, and I'm afraid of certain people. Like, I like the Constitution, and I want, to just say, let's give it to Congress to handle the distribution of money. Well, there's still a lingering problem of, say, employing people, labor, what happens when people who what happens if you increase the volatility of the public. So if you have a centralized currency, you have things like the concepts of millionaires. Do you really want that? Or do you want a currency which is somehow structured in a way that is more pertinent to your local community and layered such that you can, in fact, transact nationally or internationally, so to speak? But there's not this sense in which the millionaire with the house on the bay has this disposition by which he basically you owe him your service, because you need that resource that is so unanimously desired and wanted for, when it's really just paper. And is there a real resource on this planet which we could actually besides, say, something weird like, the human servitude or something like that, which we would all unanimously want? Well, besides happiness and things like that. But, no. But, nevertheless, we still need to be able to transact and do business and things like that. So we need to come up, there's obviously very, clever ways to come up with certain currency systems. I'm rather aggravated to be engaging in this sort of thing when I know that it is incredibly pertinent and important, and it needs to be basically done and thought about in a public sphere, I think. But you obviously have there's a concern that by pulling the rug out from under this whole thing, that too much damage will be done. And in some sense, I suppose that's true. As badly as I want to get that rug out, we're going to have to do it in such a way. But obviously, we need to move in that direction, which is going to work rather than going to work for you, right? Because the entire point of government is to facilitate the freedom for people to engage each other equally, right? Well, that's the point of government, is to keep people from infringing on the rights of others. So in other words, they're free. So the thing is that the current system, I was thinking about this just earlier, I was talking to somebody. Basically, I spoke to somebody about how I very often, in fact, NSA probably knows this, will say approach a girl and be like, and try to, tell her, hello, and talk to her for a minute. I just met her right off the bat. Well, how else am I going to meet this person? And then, try to suggest that I should get her phone number or whatever. Well, the thing is that I tell somebody this, and they're from, the previous generation, and they say, I would never give my phone number to somebody randomly. And I said, well, that's almost how you have to do it now. There's no way that you could be in a certain, social setting with that person that you're interested in. And, obviously it's kind of shallow. It's basically just sort of like you look pretty, or you look beautiful, or you look fun, you know what I'm saying? And really there is a breakdown of the social structure, because she said, I would only talk to people who I would meet through a channel of persons. I know so-and-so, so-and-so knows so-and-so, so-and-so knows this guy, and then that's how the connection was made. Okay, well, that is ebbing and going away. There's just no way to actually have that, especially if the method by which you meet people happens to be some sort of whatever. I think any kind of job now. I think that, you know, pretty much any time you're like under somebody's employ, if it's not somehow incredibly prestigious or well off, then there's a sense in which, you know, you're not that inner circle. And so it's almost like, you know, there's this sense in which the people at the top, in this constant artificial money printing club way, were consolidating their own positions. It was ebbing and getting rid of those social connections which were necessary for the rest of humanity to be able to integrate. There is no integration. Two people sitting and talking to each other, or a group of friends, God bless them, may only have football to talk about, of which it is a completely useless subject in their lives. Or they may only have, like, whatever, Marvel comics to talk about, or they may only have a certain movie that they're interested in seeing. It's just absolutely inhumane to make people think that their entire lives are only worth what they gather of Federal Reserve notes for a few hours in the day, of which there is no subject to be discussed at that point. The people at the top do not understand this, or if they do, are entirely afraid of being one of the now normal people who are stuck in the position of being that way. No, the answer is you will not. When you get rid of the paradigm, when you get rid of the system, then everybody has essentially what you have. You do not fall into the same state of slavery when you get rid of the institution of slavery. Now, obviously, when I say we get rid of it, something has to be put in place. And as much as people think that this new thing that will be put in place is somehow the work of the devil himself, I can very much assure you, you were living in the tribulation. You were clearly living under the devil's watch. And as much as you think that there's a bunch of smiles and things like that going on now, they are empty. They are meaningless. An alien race viewing us would probably find, you know, just hypothetically speaking, when I say that, I speak of somebody who, I speak of a, whatever, civilization that is working, that is actually working, would probably find so much of this to be insane or crazy or whatever. These are the death throes of the old way. Now, I don't know who's turning things around. I really don't. I speculate it's one, maybe a little group, but probably one person. And I speculate that it's sort of being felt out, and this is scaring people who are in positions of privilege at this time, because they're worried about what it means for them. Luckily, there is some sense in which the people who are asking for change are fairly smart people, and these same people are capable of handling, I suppose, this situation in such a way that they want to make a better thing out of it. Unfortunately, I would suppose it's being sort of hijacked by entrepreneurs or businessmen who are trying to position themselves in the best position possible. But I assure you, do not do this. I think what, you know, like how in a movie there's a crisis or there's some sort of great catastrophe on the horizon. Do you know what happens? All of the best thinkers are brought to bear on the situation. It's all declassified, and they all come up with a way that is best for humanity, not what is best for you or your cabal of members. Please at least do that. Inform a certain... I think this is happening. The thing is that this is all purely theoretical, and it is absolutely driving me crazy. It's actually... let me go and take a look if there's any comments. It seems somebody is speaking a Germanic language. I don't know what that means. I'm going to go ahead and translate because anyway, I need to continue talking about this stuff. So yeah, like I'm trying to think. Hold on. The people who are worried about things changing are the people who say, yeah, are that they're afraid, like they don't have any, say, good repute. Maybe they've committed crimes and they think retribution will be taken against them. Perhaps they have lived in a state of, say, luxury for so long that the idea that that would be pulled out under them is just devastating. They can't even imagine it. They have, you know, the people who want things to change are the ones who I think are disadvantaged. Unfortunately, there's a mixture, I think. Most of them are just plain advantaged. But you can't inform something like all of the U.S. military, which is kind of becoming informed right now, and have all of these people expect to, say, go along with a damage control operation. These people have not had it luxurious, and it is fortuitous that they would be informed, and probably whenever the general public becomes informed, it'll be that way too. Obviously, you do not want a state of whatever that's called, anarchy, because you don't want people to go around basically creating little tyrannies for themselves. What we need is the well-structured Constitution as it is. I'm sorry, I basically come up with something that I not only think will work, but will actually perform a sort of placebo effect. I don't know if that's the right way to put it, which is at least feigning itself as indeed the solution. Now, you know, that can happen later on. I know that some people might know what I'm referring to. Or it could be a failsafe, but I'm trying to figure out how, like, I'm like a one-man team, basically, trying to figure out how to do this. And I know that there are probably tons of think tanks gaming everything out. And it's comforting to think, but the problem is that these same think tanks were the ones who were participating in criminal activity. So maybe they were doing that unwillingly, and maybe they are happy to turn things around. I don't know. But these are, I would think, clever people. And unfortunately, I have to hope that they were just sabotaging some of the things that they were trying to do. Because I don't know that the think tanks can actually successfully pull it off. Obviously, they'd be incentivized by whoever's employing them to do the job. But I don't know that they will be effective at that job, simply because it's always they're always going to have damage control for their own sort of parties, and I would suppose that there's this sort of great consolidation of persons who are going to ride this new wave in the new direction. And I think that there's a certain amount of fear in informing the conspiracy theorists and alternative media who they are basically banking as to the exact method by which things are occurring, because the general conspiracy theorists will be like, no, that's bullshit, you're just benefiting. Well, things would not turn around if there was not some incentive by which they understand that they're going to say whatever, get away with it, or be well off in some way. And it is for this reason that I've been pushing the forgiveness movement of the powers that be, because you cannot have them wanting to commit murder-suicide, essentially, or being at a constant state of contention. And it is also, I think, in both of our best interests to just say, hey, let's just make it work. Things went to crap. It was a mistake. It's not your fault even. You were born into it, no matter where you're at. Let's turn this around. Let's go ahead and have an amazing structure, an amazing system. And let's do it in a way that it feels like it's supposed to work. And there's just so much profound to this, so much profundity, if that's the word, I don't know. And like it goes into like the way the reason we do things. It goes into like masculine and feminine forces and sexual drives, and it goes into, like, I basically crash course myself on all these things as it became apparent the burden was being laid on us to figure out how we want to make things work. Because there are all of these things that need to be updated. It's like you find out that there are all of these atrocities and all of these sins being committed, and then as you're saying, hey, don't do that, there's this response of, well, what are you going to do? And all you've ever known is this huge illusion. And you look around and so many people are still in the illusion. And I mean, you can just imagine all of these scenarios and all these problems, and all this potential for blowback. So things are really, I mean, if you really wanted to know, there's obviously, it's funny because there's really a change going on. There's a sort of heating up or liquefaction. Obviously this molting process of the current state of affairs of this world. And when we come out, I think it's going to be a beautiful new thing. So these are birthing pains of something brand new. Sometimes this stuff is so profound, and sometimes I realize things like I'm one of the only people who even get this. You know what I'm saying? That the metaphysical implications set my head spinning, and I have to bear these sort of thought processes by myself, and it's very disconcerting. Because so many people are just gut-driven, and they're not thinking like, a lot of people are thinking otherwise. It's just a lot of us that are, I think, in that sort of category of persons who reflect on these sort of things have been pushed down in society, or just kept away from the intelligentsia of the current power structure. And because I know that there's people out here who think along these same terms, but it's very lonely. It's also very scary to consider. that these things are not being thinking about by those people in the power structure as these changes are being made. Let's see how long I've been doing this. You said, what is wrong with you? And let's see what this says. Translate. What do you laberge with you, but what does not agree? What does that mean? I don't know. You speak English? Let's see what this says. What is wrong with you? Alright, well, you know, I mean, some of these operations are just really childish. So in other words, it's kind of like, this is really scary. They're doing these things, and they're doing it from a perspective of not wanting to, say, commit their egos to the operation. Kind of like when the Boston bombing happened and those pictures were leaked, and then they drew a circle around the girl's butt and then said, "the bomb." And some of these other things that they're doing. I think that they justify it by saying, like, you can't, like, we're so much smarter than you, or something like that. Like, you cannot combat us, or it's either a psychological operation, or they're really just, there's a childish demeanor there, and maybe that's what is meant to keep people in a state of fear, or I don't know. Some of these things, kind of like, you know, some of these signs are suggesting to me that I don't know. I guess I have to, like, perform some kind of PR as I'm talking to them. You can feel it, like, as you realize the way by which they're doing things. They cannot take you seriously, so to speak. Like, you cannot communicate back at them. Like, as they're revealing or saying things to you, there's almost no way to communicate back at them, and trust me, I'm actually experiencing it. Now, here's the really interesting thing. What if they do know things, right? So let's say that for some reason at these higher levels, there's a sense in which these jokesters are in fact in the middle, are in fact the kind of people that know things or something like that. I find that really interesting. But what I will say, people probably don't even know what I'm talking about, but maybe they do, you know. Jay Zamet says, I personally like a direct style democratic and a republic. To me, the democracy is voting by the people to solve problems, and the Republican side are rights that no majority can vote away. Algebraic law and government, two sides to everything. Freedom of speech, but nobody has to listen. Don't expect anybody to bow to you, and don't bow to me. I mean, the tenets of, say, liberty are in fact very. It's a good system, and it would probably work. But right now we're coming out of like a certain, like a state of, I don't know, we're coming out of an artificial system, a sort of slave slavery. And so we have to come up with something. And as much as people just wanted to, like, just want the change to sort of go away, I must continue to apply the pressure upon you to help you understand that it's breaking the law. And yes, I want to forgive. In other words, I want you to forgive yourselves, and I want others to forgive you for essentially participating in the mass breaking of the law. But let's just try not breaking the law. I mean, the law's there. I mean, why else would it be there if we were breaking it? Let's just start right there with that. Get to a point where we're not breaking the law, and then see where things go from there. But, you know, obviously, if you really wanted to perform better damage control, then you would probably want to, say, usher in a way which just does not repeat. You should just give me a moment. You know how much it strikes me that that all of these things are actually happening, you know, like, come here. You know how much it strikes me how much these very strange synchronous events are actually happening. Like, it's basically evidence of higher dimensions, God, the devil, prophecy, things like that. And coming from me, that's a big deal, okay? Because I'm one of those very hardcore, you know, rational types. I like to be very much substantiated in what I believe. And oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. You're on TV. You're on TV. Look, look, you're on TV. Oh yeah. Oh. It says, ask your audience to submit questions and they will appear below. Well, I don't know what it looks like from your screen, but it doesn't look like you can actually get questions. The dude 0529 says, "This is a bit off subject, but what are your thoughts on the John Titor story? This is a bit off topic, but many of the things he said in his post back then have come to fruition or seem likely. Of course, it could be an elaborate hoax. Curious what your thoughts are." I have heard about this John Titor, this guy who supposedly who came back from time in order to avert certain crises. But if there's anything that is, say, pertinent or has actually happened, just write it. Please do me a big favor and write it in the comments, because, yeah, if that happened, that would be pretty interesting to me. But I just don't think such things are possible. um, do you know what I mean? Like, all of this stuff. All of this stuff is actually kind of interesting or exciting or whatever. It's really neat. And oh my gosh. Obviously, I have like episodes of, like, it's some people. I mean, when you engage yourself in these matters, you inevitably find yourself involved in them. And there are very few of us, actually, maybe in the hundreds, maybe even less than that. And you begin, I think, from the perspective first person, or from the observer, or from, you start thinking metaphysical thoughts, like, crazy thoughts, like, what is my relationship to the way things are going? What is my relationship to the universe? And I don't like to think that way. I like to think very pragmatically. Unfortunately, I yearn for the pragmatic brain, because my brain is very prone to neurosis and very prone to things very theoretical and hypothetical, because I like to know all of the ins and the outs. It's probably why I have the sort of clarity that I have. But basically, it is a bit frustrating to game all this stuff out by myself. like I'm having these moments where I feel like I'm just spinning out of control. You know what I'm saying? Like there's no, the circumstances that I'm in are not matching the circumstances that I'm in are not matching up with the way they need to be or something like that. I don't know. Like I said, it's like having to take on an opponent when you're only equipped with like some twigs and some mud. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I mean. That's kind of irritating. I don't know why that's the case. I really don't. I don't have very good feelings about that either. I just want it to work. Want it all to work for everybody. Because as I've said before, there's nothing quite as pleasurable as having comparable company. And whereas one on the inside might be, say, surrounded by a number of people who are comparable company, this company has children, and these children are not on par. In fact, they're finding it hard to integrate into this ever-closing sphere of sort of like people in the know or people doing things. And then why waste all of this human potential that's out here, you know? Because when people are given the proper nodes of knowledge, I'm pretty sure, like, I was looking at some pictures from the 90s, and there was this sense in which before 9/11, there was just this blossoming and this blooming, booming sort of like substantiation of the world. Like, this is so cool, this is real, there's always new and exciting things happening all the time. And then post 9/11, everyone, I think a lot of people knew, kind of became extremely disillusioned, and there was this sense in which everything went to crap. And let's get that stuff back. I mean, let's just get it all back. I don't understand what the problem is. You know, I'm very tired, and I basically have a hard time sleeping, especially by myself. But there's this weird sense in which, by my talking to you, I'm actually talking to a lot of other people. And it's a one-way conversation, kind of, but it's helping me. It's helping me to sleep, and I'm starting to feel sleepy now. And I think I'm just going to go ahead and take this to the bedroom and fall asleep with you guys. As sad as that sounds, I'm just going to go ahead and do that. I actually kind of like the position I'm in, so that people understand from that there's not this person, there's not this great fear You know, because I don't know. There's a lot of people who probably couldn't even handle the sort of psychological conditions I have to go through. But there's like, this is not even remotely scratching the surface of what other people are going through. You know what I'm saying? This is probably the worst that could happen to you from, there's fear of that. To be honest with you, everything's going to be better. I can't muster it up in my voice to the excitement I feel at the thought that if I sort of figured out how unlikely crap in the world is working, then I will accidentally propagate behavior which will, because I sit there and think like, okay, so the only jobs that I see in the area are, or like just something like, how does anyone make a certain amount of money over minimum wage and then keep that position? Right? So many workers who are trying to lower the wages of the jobs. So like a lot of people that are even making any money and that are not in the know somehow are actually people who are employed who really are just being nice and not firing them, and just being like, yeah, I will pay you an unnecessary amount of money, even though there's so many workers who will do the same job basically for minimum wage. So when I start thinking these things, I start basically worrying that it's all broken and it's all about to break, and I'm like, whoa, guys, it's bad right now. Let's go ahead and start fixing it. And it's such a huge task. I want to help them. I want to help you fix it. I want to basically have under my employ those faculties which could fix things. Because honestly, the private sector of this country is virtually dead. Dead. I don't even know if it's struggling, but it's dead. Alright, let's not say it's dead. It's probably struggling. That's why a big change is a-coming. Let's go to bed. Trying to find a glass I can use. guess what? Nobody likes to die. So are you here on this planet just to pass on? Or are you going to leave something behind? So honestly, it's like, God bless Ron Paul, you know, for uh, for wanting things to be fair, you know. That is such a big deal because, you know, there were a couple forces which were causing people to like not have things be fair. They were just, there was like, number one, if you opposed it, they would kill you or destroy you in some way, or your family and stuff like that. Number two, you would lose generally your place in society and all that you've done and everything that you think you did on your own. It's kind of like somebody I know who has never been single. Right? So the guy basically had a girlfriend in high school and then moved from that girlfriend on to another girlfriend simultaneously and then moved from that girlfriend on to another. So he's never had to endure the single lifestyle. And he and I both know that there's a big risk that if he is ever forced into a state of being single, that he just wouldn't be able to handle it, you know, because sometimes people don't really understand, and some people understand what they have until it's gone. So suddenly something goes and you're like, oh, life is different, it's all good. And then it's gone for like, I don't know, maybe like a week, and then suddenly it's like, whoa, that was a huge injury. You know what I'm saying? And why I'm saying that is that some of these insiders are theoretically very afraid. You know, they may even feel like they deserve. Let me tell everybody something. What you deserve is your reputation, and that reputation is not going to just go away from you. Okay, your reputation is something that is in other people, and that's something that could possibly, you know, be attacked as well in the event of disclosure and things like that. So there is a sort of general level of anxiety, and there might be some contention against conspiracy theorists and people that are sort of driving the change right now. But like I said, you have those three tiers of people that are driving the change. You've got the people wanting it to work. You've got the people driven by, you know, the gut instinct of having seen the evil and wanting to never, you know, basically vanquish it. Yeah. So let's go ahead and classify these. We've got the people wanting it to work, the people vanquishing evil, and the third one is, I can't remember. I guess we'll have to rewind the video to figure out what that one is. Oh, the spiritual side of things. The one in which they're actually sort of actually taking like a rational or logical perspective on it, and they're trying to change things from that perspective. If you'll give me a moment, I have to take my contacts out. So the spiritualist, the vanquishers of the evil, and the people wanting the system to work, you know, for whatever reason, their children, their works of art, the humanity, you know. These are the people driving the change that you see. Now, I don't know. Let's think about who would be in that case of persons. Are they top? I don't think that they're intermediary, basically. Like, I think it's tippy top, changing things, either by changing their mind or conceding to a better position, or having been that way all along, sort of thing. That's probably where the change is coming from. Then taper down, and I don't think that these people are changing things. But then you've also got the disadvantaged persons in the power structure. These are going to be military assets, and these are going to be basically people who are being taken advantage of, you know, intelligence assets and things like this, and or just people that want things to work, and maybe even like disadvantaged business owners and stuff like that who got muscled out of their competition. Well, that's another very powerful force that would be changing things, and their numbers are growing, so. But the ones I think that would be hesitant, to say the least, are these intermediary 1%er types who are essentially just afraid of what it means to basically follow the law, you know. And they just have this sort of like self-interested sort of thing of like, you know, I'm sure that they're all branching out right now to try to figure out what's going on. And let me go ahead and tell you, I don't know. They've been able to sort of keep me from knowing what's going on. So, you know, obviously there are questions running rampant, I think, on the inside trying to figure that out. Well, here I am talking to you because I'm also trying to figure it out. Just a moment. Take off these contacts before I fall asleep with them in my eyes. See if I have my glasses somewhere too. I think what really kind of sucks is there's a lack of appreciation for what you see occurring right now. Like, this is phenomenal, basically, because whereas other people think that this is just the work of, say, an alien or the work of a whatever spirit or something like that, and these sort of things are true and they should be taken into consideration, there's a sense in which it's still the processes of normal people. It's historical event stuff, basically. And it kind of sucks to like have people classing it as otherworldly when in fact it's quite potentially possessed by anybody that wants it, you know. They don't want it to be their fault for not engaging in it or their fault for whatever. I don't know. There's so many ways to game all of this out. Hey, I'm gonna be in here sleeping, okay? Love you, buddy. Brian. I know I'm gonna be in here sleeping, man.
Huh?
I said I'm gonna try to go to sleep, but if you'll just
wake you up and it's time to go to work.
do you need a ride?
I'll make you some food when you get up there.
All right. Or is the bus not running or whatever?
I mean, I'm sure it's running, but you know.
Yeah, because it's 9 o'clock right now, right?
It's 9 o'clock right now.
Hold on. Just come over there. Yeah, I'm gonna try to hit the stack. I was doing good on my diet. No, I'm not. No, I'm still going to be doing good on my diet. I just messed up last night because it was somebody's birthday and I ate about 1,200 more calories than I should have or something. I don't know. Really good at counting those calories out. That's how you lose weight, basically. Anyway, where was I in this metaphysical escapade? Yeah, these are the kind of things that basically drove me into a state of insanity in roughly 2005. Like a state of like hypersanity is what I call it. Like when you look up, say, the Joker, they say he's in a state of hypersanity, and I would say it's very much like that. I start thinking about the profoundness of reality, and there's all of these uncertains and unknowns that will basically sort of like, you know, it's just like fear of death stuff, you know. But I want you to understand that it's totally fine for you to understand, because people all throughout history have had that sort of disposition towards these things, and there's a sense in which it's all just always like when you come to understand it, it puts your mind at peace, and that things are actually quite simple and quite normal, and it tends to be the work of, say, whatever, theoretical physics that will make things quite complicated, but in reality it's all very simple and normal, and might even be a little bit corny at sometimes, you know, like you hear these things chanted over and over again about love and forgiveness and peace and stuff like that, but those things are very real, and those things are very much the point of why we're here. And I don't know if that's what existentialism can mean, but basically, like, think about it like you were born into a state of having all of these things that you're now being told is bullcrap, but is in fact just incredibly. Apparently, CNN is saying, never mind, I won't talk about that. Oh, I'm so tired. I want to fall asleep. I'm so depressed. I want to cure that so bad. This is not the proper conditions to handle this sort of Atlas level work. I don't care if it runs for 4 hours. I want to sleep. And I want the feed running because it makes me feel like I'm connected and I'm not going to eat myself alive because I can vent all of my concerns on the internet. And I remember a really long time ago, like I sat there and thought, you know what, I need to pump my thoughts into the public sphere, into the internet, so that at least these things, whether they're valuable or not, can be accessed by others in the future. And these are profound thoughts. This is good stuff to hear and good stuff to think about. As long as I know you're watching me, I can fall asleep. This is so nice. Because I want you guys to understand this. I love you. That kind of makes me, that sounds so sweet, yeah, but it's true. Like, you are all like children, and I want what's best for you. And it's just like, if you have a bunch of children in a room, they're all still children. Even the bad ones are children too. But obviously the sweetest of the children are the ones that are, the meek, and they're whatever, it's very difficult to describe, but, a child that is not advantaged in any way. Obviously there's some sense in which they're loved and more dearly. was just thinking about having my little cat here. I love you. I love you, Leah Benz. You go to sleep with me. Hey, Ryan? 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 1 second. Ryan, can you turn the TV down? Try this again. Put this like together. Great. Great. Can't believe it.